Okay, I'm going to show you the operating system. This is the Windows screen. After you start the machine up, this is what you're going to see. And you're going to see a little icon here called Plasma. That's what you're going to use to start the Plasma control software. So now you see the Plasma control star. Now it comes up. Now you got to pull the E-stop. And I do have the error on, so when I hit this, you can hear the machine kind of clear itself and orientate itself. Now, it needs to home. So I'm going to press the start button here on the screen. And now you can see the bridge is moving and the gantry is moving back to home itself out. So, and the screen tells us that right here. And once it gets down to the corner, it's going to kind of make some small moves that are real hard to see. And it takes 20-30 seconds. And then it's going to come up and tell us that the machine's homed, and it'll be back to the normal operating screen. See if I can see both here. Okay, so it's making this moves back out, and now the screen is back up to the control screen. So here, you can change from inch to metric, or it's telling you you're in metric in English. Now here, you have some choices. You can get a file from the LAN or the network. You can get a file from the disk. And then you can go into the auto. My mouse is... You can go into the auto, and this is where you're going to select a program, edit a program, test run a program, or actually run a program. And it tells you your Pierce count, tells you where you're at in your program. It says right now we have no program selected. And then up here at the top, before you, like when I select a program, I'll just go here and select a program. And I'll just pick one here. Okay, so I picked this, and you can see a little graphic comes up, and I'm going to hit OK. Now, a couple things you need to enter. There's three things. One, you need to enter the feed rate. So what you do is you come down to your cut charts, and I have this book here. It has all the cut charts for this plasma power supply in it. And let's just say we're cutting 1/8 inch, and we can cut 1/8 inch with 70 amps. And we can cut 1/8 inch with 50 amps. You can see we can cut 10 gauge, 12 gauge, so 1/8 inch is right in between those with 50 amps. Let's see, 30 amps. We could go down here, yep, we could cut it with 30 amps. So we can choose depending on what consumables we have, and maybe we've already got the consumables loaded, and how fast we want to cut, we can choose. But like right now, I want to choose 70 amps, and we're going to go 1/8 inch. So I'm going to come across here, and it's asking for feed rate. So what I'm going to do is say travel speed is 170 inches a minute, right there. So that's what I'm going to type in here. So I'm going to just 170 and hit OK. Now the next thing it's going to ask me is kerf. What's my kerf? And the kerf is, you know, the diameter of the cut, so or the width of the cut. So I know for using this consumable, and it's real easy to figure it out. You just measure the opening basically for a good starting place. It's about 70 thousandths. So I put in 0.070, and I'm going to hit 0. Now up here at the top, I put in, it's recorded what we put in. So kerf is 70, feed rate is 170 inches a minute. Arc speed, you really never mess with. Now here's the cycle start. Now it says down here, this program is selected, and it's telling me, hey, if I want to run it, I just hit cycle start. Now I didn't set up program 0 or anything down there, so I'm not going to run it right now. But that's how you initiate. And when you, I'm going to go back to the previous screen here. Now, when you want to just jog the machine around in manual, we were just in auto here. I'll go into manual. And now we have the ability to jog the machine around with these. And trying to get the mouse in the picture here. So if I want to just bring the bridge my way, I do that. If I want to bring it positive Y, I'll hit that button. And you can see it moving there. Now anytime that I get it to where I want it, like let's say I've got it on the corner of a sheet and I want to call that program 0. What you do is you come over here and you say define home. And here I can say, okay, it asks me what number. So I'm going to say home 2. I hit OK. Now I've memorized that spot on the table as home 2. So if for whatever reason I cut some parts out of that sheet and I leave the sheet in the same place and I want to come back later today and cut some more parts out of that sheet, I know where that sheet's at, and on my CAD system I know that I can lay the parts out on the sheet next to the parts I cut earlier, and then as long as I don't move the sheet much, I can come back to home 2 and the machine will know, or everything will work out. I'll cut the rest of the sheet out. Now if I want to, so I'm just going to jog the machine off of home 2 here a little ways. And now if I go up here to this button and it says go to home, well, I click on that. I'll just say I want to go to home 2. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to hit cycle start. Now as soon as I hit cycle start, it's going to go back to home 2, and it says right there I'm at home 2. So you can have, I think, up to like 10 homes. I use a home on every sheet I put on the machine. I create a home just in case I need to start over or I need to cut more parts out of that same sheet later. You can take the sheet off the machine and you can mark it if you want and save your remnants in your computer, and that's one way you can do it. Now there's another button down here called Align. So, and I never used it, but let's say that you want to align your sheet. Let's say you put the sheet on the table, but you don't get it square with the X and the Y axis, which is something that I recommend you always do. But let's say you just cannot do it. You can align electronically the machine or the plate to the machine, and it will rotate the major axis to those. So you just basically pick up the corners of the sheet and it will create a straight line and it'll rotate the axis. So I don't think that's, I mean, some applications that's good, but I always put the sheet on square. That way next time I can get it right back on square and I'm good to go if I want to use that sheet again. If I want to start the torch manually here, let's say I just want to crop off a sheet that I had on there earlier, or maybe I cut something, I cut half a sheet, and now I've got a half a skeleton connected to the second half of the sheet. What you can do is just manually turn the torch on here. What I would do is go up and set your feed rate, because when you're jogging you can see the feed rate is at 1,000, and that's too fast to cut. So let's say that I had a piece of 1/8 inch on there, like in my example a minute ago, and I wanted to crop off the skeleton that I just cut, so I'd have just a nice half a sheet left. What I would do is I'd go up here and I'd set this for 170. Now when I jog using these buttons, it's only going to move at 170, so you can see it's moving a lot slower. So now I would put the torch where I want it over on the edge of the sheet, and I would hit the torch on button, and then I would come over and I would jog it across the sheet. Now I don't have the power supply turned on right now, so I won't do that. I may do that here in a little bit for an example. But that's what you can do with that. Now I know one question you had was, okay, what shapes can I cut on the machine itself? So if I go into auto, now there's a select shape here. And here you can see a menu comes up, and these are shapes that are in there. And let's say I just want to cut a donut here with 4 bolt pattern in it. So now it's asking me, okay, what's the major radius? What's the inside radius? What's the radius of the bolt pattern? And then what's the diameter of the bolts and how many bolts? So you can put in 6 bolts, and now you can see it has 6 bolts. You can put in a smaller diameter, let's just say 0.5, and now the bolts are going to get, the holes are going to get smaller. So and you can nest it also. So if I like that, I can nest it. I can say, okay, how many do I want? Well, I want, let's say 10, and I never use this just because I do everything on the computer, which is just a lot more flexible. And the gap between them, let's say 0.5, that's probably too much, but just for kicks, we'll leave it at 1/4 on that other axis. Now it's saying my sheet size needs to be this size, and it's a lot bigger than what the table is. So let me go back here and just put 5 in and 7 in. Now it's, yeah, 147 inches. Let's put 6 in. So now 102, that's, you know, it's not 102 inches wide. It's a 6 foot wide machine. So we need to get it down. The parts were 10 inches, so we can only get about 4 of them in there. So in X and in Y, okay, I'm sorry, I'm doing this wrong. I need 4 here, and then I need about, I can go 6 there. Let's go. So anyway, that's how you would go in there, and there's a program I have selected. I don't really use that much either. Let me see here. I find, you know, I mean, if you have a machine like this, you're going to want to be programming offline. Now, if you just need one little shape and you want to come in here and, you know, cut a couple things, fine, you know. But I think you're going to find that you really want to use an offline package. So that's the machine control software. There's the torch height control. I think you saw that in some other videos. I'm just going to take a few videos of the machine here. Here's all the consumables. So what I do is, like here, I've got all the nozzles that, when you look at the cut chart, it tells you, okay, I need this cap, and that really changes. I need this shield cap, and that changes. The 3 things that change depending on what you're cutting is the shield cap, the nozzle, and the electrode. The swirl ring hardly ever changes. The retaining cap, there's only 2 different ones. Torch body's obviously the torch body, and the outer cap hardly ever change. So like here, the most common things that change are the nozzles and the caps and the electrodes. And you can see I've got them all lined up, and you can see there's quite a few new ones here. I've got new ones up here too. But so I've got the caps, the nozzles, and the electrodes all lined up. Now I've got swirl rings here and some grease and just general stuff, but that's the way you need to keep these so you can access them quickly. I'm not very organized right now because I haven't been in business, but it's for a while. But anyway, let's look inside the cabinet. So, electrical cabinet. Here's the electrical cabinet, the back of it. So here's the Cole Morgan Servo Stars, brake resistors, an I/O card. It's all in real good, clean. Now, the computer sits in the front of that same cabinet. So there's some more. This is on the opposite. This is in the back of that cabinet, and there's the PC, and there's all the discs, the plasma. That's a very important CD right there for the AKS. If you ever have to replace the computer, that's what you need. And there's the disconnect to turn the electrical enclosure on for the control. Here is, like I said, I have 150 amp fuses. I'd have to shut this off. But this is my disconnect, 200 amp disconnect, 240 volt for the plasma power supply, and then this is the 30 amp 240 volt single phase 240 that supplies power to the actual controller. And then the dust collector, here's the motor starter enclosure for it, and the controller that blows the filters out on a. There's the back of the dust collector. It's like new. But anyway, I wanted to give you a look over the software there. So when I bring a program out to the machine, I use this little USB station next to the keyboard there, and you'll see me bring a program out in a minute, and that's where I'll put the program in to load it on the machine. And